Welcome to D1 Ticker. I'm Matt Banker, pleased to be joined by Wichita State head softball coach Kristi Bredbenner. Kristi, good to see you.
Yes, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
We're here at the Softball Coaches Convention this week, and I want to start first asking you about the Shockers and the 2024 season, which is right around the corner. A couple insights about what you're looking forward to this season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting year for the Shockers. I think we'll be really good in the circle. We return all three of our pitchers that contributed at a high level last year, and added two freshmen that are both showing some real promise, real potential. But I think the biggest change for us, Sid McKinney graduated, Zoe Jones, Lauren Mills, three kids that were offensive catalyst, and obviously Sid in a big way led the NCAA in hitting the last 2 years. So you don't just replace, a Sid McKinney, and we're going to have a healthy Addie Barnard back, and we're just going to rely on a lot of new players, so a lot of new faces. Our goal is to obviously offensively be as good as we possibly can, and it might look a little different. Maybe not as much long ball, a little more bunting, a little more base running, moving runners different ways, and yeah, we'll see. Tough schedule, so it'll be exciting.
Don't give your whole game plan away. You got to keep a couple of things in your back pocket.
Yep, got to keep a couple in my pocket. Yep, exactly.
But you were coming off a 44-win season, a great year last year. And I also want to ask you, coming up for this season, from a student-athlete experience standpoint, preseason trips are sort of the name of the game in softball. You're all going to Mexico. Those opportunities are pretty unique in its own right, and I know that's sort of, again, a marker for softball, but tell me how that's important for someone who's coming to play softball at Wichita State.
Well, it's a big trip for us. We've never been able to take the team on a foreign tour or trip, out of the United States, and when we approached our athletic director about the opportunity to play there and the teams and the caliber of talent that you're going to play against, he was all about it. And, I think that kind of shows the commitment that Wichita State's willing to make to our softball program to give our student athletes a really cool experience. I would say a high majority of them had to buy a passport or get a passport, and so it's going to be a great trip. We leave on a Monday, we come back on a Saturday. We have a really tough schedule. We play Clemson, South Carolina, Auburn, and UC Davis. But the fortunate thing for us is we play one game a day, so we have no doubleheader. So all hands on deck in the circle, and just hopefully for our kids an experience. We've got a few that have never flied before, that are freshmen, and several that have never obviously been out of the country. So it's exciting for our program, and I think a really good student athlete experience, not just for our athletes, but our managers and our bullpen boys, and a lot of people on our staff who haven't had that type of an opportunity. So it should be a good time. Yeah,
it sounds like a fantastic trip. And we always talk about life skills, and that's sort of embedded in the student-athlete experience. You mentioned a couple of things, getting a passport, boarding a plane for the first time. These are kind of monumental things if someone's not done those or have traveled internationally. So there's some opportunities in addition to the competition.
Absolutely. And they've got to grow up, and I thought, I think it was Linda Wells today in a talk this morning talked about, college is all about taking a kid's dependency on their parents away or moving them into being able to be independent on their own. And no better way than, making them get a passport and go on a little bit of a foreign tour and see something from a completely different perspective. And obviously they're not just going to be left alone to do whatever they want, but just a really cool opportunity for them to grow.
Sticking to on-the-field conversations and topics, including in the hallways here at the convention, is a lot of discussion around playing rule changes that have happened and are on the horizon here. Anything jumping out to you that you're looking forward to seeing implemented this coming spring? Things you're curious how it's actually going to work? Just your thoughts on the new playing rules.
I think obstruction's always, a hot topic, and just seems like they're tweaking it here or there. So just how that's going to play out with it changing a little bit. The leap, removing the fact that somebody can't elevate, I think that takes a little pressure away from the umpires. And a lot of people put the pressure on the umpire to make the right calls all the time on the bases, but when you start really breaking down how much they're trying to look at one time, if we can alleviate a little bit of that, I think that's only going to benefit them, and I don't see a true real benefit to maybe elevating a little bit as a pitcher. It's one thing to replant, it's another thing to just get a little bit of air. And in all honesty, if you really put most pitchers in slow-mo, they've all been airborne at some point. So to me, that's a big one that'll just kind of take some stress out of the umpires' brains. But yeah, I mean, rules are rules. We have them for a reason. I think a lot of times it's great to see the rules like pitch comm and the way that we can communicate with pitchers and catchers, see how forward moving our sport is, and that, as we evolve, the sport's evolving with us.
So I want to ask you about your recruiting philosophy, and in particular with the transfer portal being kind of obviously a big headline these days in college sports, sort of whether that's shifted your thinking, your staff's approach to who you want to go after. Do you hold off on recruiting high school club athletes, coming from the high school ranks, kind of what's been your strategy with this?
Well, we've benefited from the portal. Sid McKinney, portal kid, Zoe Jones, portal kid, Lauren Howell, portal kid, kids, student athletes that have been a big part of our program. I don't think we can bank on getting portal kids every single year, but I think through our recruiting process, we have really learned that when we go after kids or we're recruiting them early in the process, it's a big decision for them. And we can't take it personally when they say no, because you never know when that kid's going to call you back, and say, hey, you know what, it's not working out here at X university. I'd really like to give Wichita State a chance. And, that was the case with Zoe. Ended up going somewhere else. We recruited her when she was a sophomore, in the early recruiting days. And she wanted to play at the Power 5 level. And that seems to be most kids' dreams. And, it just didn't work, and we were happy to have her.
The transfer decisions in the transfer windows, the recruiting process is very different in a way from high school students who you might be building a multi-year relationship of getting to know them and watching them play and evaluate. And of course, you certainly know something about other college players too, but I'm curious about the speed in which recruitment of a transfer and the decision-making process. Is there any adjustments you and your staff have had to make, and what you're just seeing in general in softball?
Well, I think innately we all keep an eye on kids, right? So when we go through this recruiting process at the young age, we still watch them. Hey, how'd they do? Are they getting to play? Are they going to be a kid that maybe ends up in the portal? You keep an eye on that kind of stuff, and there's a little bit more tracking from that perspective. But if the opportunity does arise, you got to move quick, right? And I think that's the difference between that September 1 junior year. You've got a 2-year relationship that you're building with the kid before they are actually on your campus. Now you might have a 2-week relationship with this kid, and you've got to figure out, okay, are they in the portal for the right reasons? Were they a good athlete who it just wasn't a great fit and they're going to really thrive in your program? Or, are they leaving for a negative reason? You've got to figure out all those types of questions, plus get them on campus, get their parents on campus, really get a true understanding of what their situation is. And so it can be quick. We rely a lot on the coach, the school they're coming from, the travel ball coach, the high school coach, people that they know. Sometimes it's players that have already graduated from that school that maybe somebody on our team knew, or, our kids know them a little bit sometimes. So it's different, and you want to gather as much information as you possibly can, but you've got to make some quick decisions. And I think every Division I and probably every division, it doesn't matter, they keep an eye on the kids that they recruit hard, and then they're keeping an eye on positions. Are we thin in an area? Could we use a better player in a certain spot? Because of that, who do I think could go into the portal? And then you start tracking that kid to see, okay, they're not getting the playing time, or they don't seem happy, or whatever. Everything that you can kind of do to keep an eye on them. And if they get in, you're trying to pounce on them a little bit.
Sure. I mean, you said it, it's shrunk down to just a couple of weeks to have a lot of things happen, obviously doing the research even before the portal window opens, but that's just an interesting dynamic compared to the long view and long run that a high school recruit and that interaction for, like you said, 2 years, year and a half before they even sign a scholarship. I want to ask you more generally, stepping back just about the sport of softball, and a word that a lot of coaches we've talked to today have mentioned is growth. And that it's in a good place and those sorts of things. Just your view of the sort of state of the sport, its health, where you think it's going, those sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, to see the television audience, the attendance at the World Series, at regionals, at supers, at regular season games for colleges, I do think it's a sport that's growing, and you're seeing more and more kids involved in the sport. But I think it's the passion and the fans that are out there right now. 20 years ago, very few softball games were on television, and now you're streaming, 100 games a weekend at least. I'm sure it's way more, and I'm undercutting it quite a bit. But, I think people look forward to the postseason because softball's on TV so much, and it's an exciting game. Just the growth at Wichita State with our fan base and getting people to give softball a chance because we've done well, and they get excited to come out and watch a program that's winning and having success. And then they come out to one game and it's like, this is pretty exciting. I want to try to come to another one. And then they become a season ticket holder. And, I just think it's such a fun, energetic sport that, fans really quickly fall in love with it when they give it a chance.
I'm curious too, the marketing and sort of the strategy of community engagement, and obviously in the community of Wichita in particular, for you, sort of what strategies and things, because you mentioned it, hey, if we can get them to the ballpark and see a game, it's going to capture their interest. They might buy season tickets. They might come back for next week's games, those sorts of things. What has been your program's approach to that, even just in the last few years?
Well, I love Wichita, and to me, Wichita, the reason that we stay, that we love Wichita, I mean, I've been there, this is my 13th year. Wichita is a small community in a big city, right? And, Wichita is the biggest city in Kansas, but just such a small town vibe. Like, everybody loves the Shockers, and they recognize you in the grocery store and things like that. So I think for us, it's just having a really open and welcoming dialogue with anybody that's interested in Shocker softball. But I will say, as a city, the best marketing is to win, and they love to follow a winner, and that's the biggest thing. I mean, when our sports are in their heyday at Wichita State, the fans come, and they come in droves, and it's a hot ticket, and that's what they want. So you can't. That's recognizably the best marketing plan there, is to put a good product out on the field and have success and make it fun to watch. But when you get to the games, our marketing crew, they do a great job. They've done a really nice job of. In 13 years, we went from probably having a schedule card and a poster to having commercials and billboards and different things like that. So, they're excited about Shocker softball, they're excited about Shocker athletics, and they do what they can to get the fans out there to watch them.
How has name, image, likeness, you mentioned some of these other sort of publicity and promotional opportunities, but that world certainly has collided with college sports the last few years. How has that worked for your softball program?
Yeah, right off the bat, Wichita State, jumped on and a couple collectives. We have a all-female collective. We've got just a general collective, and I think they've done quite a bit of stuff with our student athletes. We also use a marketplace that I think has really been the main thing that's helped our student athletes. In the world of softball for NIL, you got to put the work in as a student too, right? You've got to be willing to reach out and do that happy birthday shout out, or want to do that commercial and kind of follow up with some of the things that go along with it, or get on that marketplace and sign up for some things. And we've had some athletes that have really done well. Sid McKinney was excellent at it and really created a great brand for herself and was involved in a lot of things, but she had to work hard at it. When we'd talk to her, she'd be like, oh, I'm on a Zoom or I'm doing this podcast. And she put herself out there. Not only was she having success, but she was willing to put herself out there. And she really benefited from that. And, again, it comes along with success. We don't have, in the softball world right now, we aren't in the position where people are probably saying, hey, here's a car and here's this lump sum or whatever. Our athletes, aren't necessarily getting that, but they're getting a good experience and they've got opportunities to really make a name for themselves. And once they do, then use that name to maybe make a little extra money, which is a good thing.
Which is a great opportunity. And obviously, as you mentioned, winning helps that too, in terms of fan and interest, local businesses, et cetera. I wanted to veer toward just sort of the global view of college sports and what's going on in the world, which is a lot.
Yep.
We mentioned a couple topics already, but of course, there's now a conversation around whether the highest resource institutions, FBS institutions, would break away in some way, shape, or form. What would that look like? What would the economic model look like? And those kind of things. But those kind of hypotheticals have reality and impacts across the country for everybody, regardless of which school, what division, those kind of things. I'm curious your reaction to some of the conversations happening now from the lens of a softball coach, and also for those leaders who might even be watching this interview, what they should know about the importance of Olympic sports and female sports and other sports aside from football and basketball, about why they're important for a lot of reasons. Just kind of curious your thoughts, sort of the value proposition for softball.
Well, I think first and foremost, as soon as all of the conference realignment started happening, and I think for me, when you saw the Big Ten add Oregon and Washington and USC and UCLA, you were like, how's that going to work, right? I mean, that's not close. And then you've got, I think, is it Cal Berkeley going into the AAC? ACC, sorry. Sure. ACC, good Lord, we're in the AAC. But, and the closest school to them is Louisville. Mm-hmm. When you start thinking about that and some of your Olympic sports, you knew right away the skyrocketing cost to be able to compete in that conference for all those Olympic sports was going to be a problem. And so I think we all knew that eventually there was going to be something that would trickle down. But it's, to me, you just kind of keep going with what you've got. I think, my hope is they don't take any opportunities away from Olympic sports, and they don't take any opportunities away from the males or the females that play those Olympic sports. I mean, the impact that college athletics has on student athletes, whether it's lacrosse, softball, college football, is unbelievable. And I think, the one thing that I would say is that nothing prepares a person for life after college better than college athletics, because you're giving them so many opportunities to grow, right? They're getting away from that dependence on their parents and, learning how to create their own independence through, their opportunities as a college student, and getting to play and do what they love at the same time. And so we're all listening with open ears as to what's going to happen. And I think there's so many things that you hear, whether it's regionalization for Olympic sports, whether it's nothing's going to happen for Olympic sports. It's going to stay what it is, and it's just going to be football and men's and women's basketball. I mean, we'll all see. We get that we're not a gigantic revenue builder, but I will tell you what, women's softball is making some money for ESPN, and there's a lot of schools out there that are able to sustain some of their expenses with the revenue that they're bringing in from ticket sales and opportunities for sponsorships and things like that. So it's a growing sport, it's an emerging sport, but as it grows, it also gets more expensive. So we all get it, and I think we're keeping a watchful eye on what this landscape looks like, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to compete with the Nebraskas and the Oklahoma States and the Oklahomas of the world for a long time, because as that mid-major school, it kind of caught in the middle of all Big 12 and a little bit of Big 10 country. We need to be able to play those games to hopefully make our program better and stronger, and that we get to play them in the postseason a little bit. Because to me, we've got a good thing going with NCAA softball, and we'll see what happens.
One other thing you mentioned there, regionalization. I did want to ask you about that too. Do you think, as a sport and a governing body, just say, look, softball leadership, and other sports maybe doing the same thing, do you think that's a worthwhile kind of research and develop a model where it cuts down on the travel, it cuts on the missed class time, those kind of things? What are your thoughts around that?
I don't think it's a bad model. Obviously, I coached at the Division II level for 6 years, and it's very similar to what the Division II model looks like. You've got your North Central, your South Central region, and depending on which region you're in, you want to play opponents within that region for points. And I think the challenge that you're going to have for something like that is just, it's going to always be weather. And you've got a northern group that, can only go down south. Who are they playing against, and how is it benefiting them? And, I think that it's an opportunity that is cost effective. I mean, I would 100% understand it if we were put in the North Central or the South Central. We're kind of right in that middle of where there's a reason we could be in both, right? We could be a school in the North Central region that is south enough in that region to host some stuff in March, in April, when you've got a South Dakota State or a North Dakota who's not going to be hosting anything in probably till at least April. Yep. So I think there's a lot of things that they can look at, and if that keeps softball whole as a Division I body and avoids the tiers, great. But you're still going to have your battles, right? I mean, I was looking at it yesterday, just out of curiosity, how much people spend. Because I don't know, I'm naive. I live in my Wichita State bubble, and there's schools, I think at their highest, that their revenues are $258 million and their expenses are $251 or something like that. And you got Wichita State that's like $28 million and $25 million. There's a big difference, and I get we don't have football, but that's a lot of money somebody's spending on football if that's the only difference of things that we don't have. So, and that could be the case, I don't know. But, life's going to be always throwing you curveballs, and you just got to be ready to dodge them or try to hit them out of the park. And, that's what we're going to keep doing. We're going to keep an eye on it and hopefully stay the course and, keep growing as a program.
Fantastic. Good finishing thought. Kristi Bredbenner, thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much.